Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS Inform. Well, state legislators got back to business last week and finished up yet another week of activities at the State House. And we're talking with State Representative for District 63, that is Shane Lindauer, representing our area. And Shane, I don't think we touched on this last time. What really is your district?
Yeah, so I represent, it's actually portions of 4 counties. It's portions of DuBois, Davies, Pike, and Martin County. So it's roughly a geographic area from Jasper, Petersburg, up to Washington, and then over to the Shoals and Lagodi area in Martin County there. So certainly not a perfect square, but that's roughly the outline of the geographic area. So
I don't know of any district that's a perfect area anywhere in the state, federally, local. It's all real weird. Okay, let's talk about some bills that you're involved in and what you're excited about at the State House.
Yeah, so this week, I think since we talked last, I think I mentioned a couple of the bills that that I was looking at, but this week we were able to pass out of Ways and Means Committee, which is the first step for any bill, is to pass out of its assigned committees, which is House Bill 1004, which is the Small Business Grant Program. It sets up a small business grant program funded from an initial $30 million infusion of cash from the state general fund. And that is a grant program set up to get small businesses that have been negatively impacted from COVID and from the forced government shutdowns, quite honestly, to get back on their feet. So that passed again out of Ways and Means this week. You know, we're all, I think, excited about that bill. And that was the biggest news for me. Had another bill heard in public health on telehealth as well. And we're still continuing to do a little work on that bill as it progresses as well. So.
Okay, and the telehealth bill has to do with what?
Telehealth is I've just viewed it as a tool for medical professionals to another way that they can touch their patient, so to speak. I use touch obviously metaphorically, right? Because it's virtual. Telehealth was a big interest to me prior to COVID because we live in rural Indiana. And this technology allows you in rural Indiana to maybe interact with a medical professional, a doctor, wherever it may be in larger communities that are, specialties, those kind of things that we may not be able to see here in DuBois County, on a weekly basis. And then when COVID happened, it became an even more needed technology or a useful tool, I would say, because now you've got, like elderly folks who maybe don't want to get out and interact in a doctor's office or wherever it may be. So this allowed them to interact with their doctor. And maybe it's not, you could argue, and some certainly do, that it's not as effective, right, as in-person care, obviously, right? However, it is certainly better than nothing, to be able to interact with your patient, even, physical therapists, chiropractors, watching exercises that they've been sent home to do, right? You can kind of watch the patient via, similar to what we're doing right now, via a Zoom link or some sort of a video conferencing link. Again, I've never intended it to be instead of, but a tool for medical professionals. So we're just trying to codify what that means, what telehealth is, who can use it, how can it be used, and also keep some safeguards in place there so we don't, have abuse of telehealth. So,
but it kind of goes back to what you said at the chamber meeting with the press when you were talking about things. I don't remember what percentage you used, but a large percentage of what the State House representatives and Senate is doing is addressing bills that are already in place, and cleaning them up or just making them better.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had that conversation numerous times since I've been in this office. It's, I don't know what the number is this year, but it's, in the thousands as far as numbers of bills. I think it's 1,500, 1,600 bills get filed in a typical year. And, certainly those aren't all just new and novel ideas. Many of those bills are touch-ups or tweaks from stuff we've done, last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, so certainly that's a big part of what happens. Yes.
Well, you could take telehealth as a great example of that, because 10 years ago, there was no such thing really as telehealth. And
Yes.
now with smartphones and computers, it is just so much easier, really. And it keeps people out of the doctor's offices at a time we don't want them necessarily there. And, with your smartphone, you can take a picture of your throat. You can take a picture of that growth on your hand, whatever it is, and send it to a doctor. Or, like you mentioned in physical therapy, you can show the exercise you're doing, and the person can say you're doing it wrong or you're doing it right.
Yeah. Again, it to me, I think it's a very valuable tool. Like I said, it's another means for a medical professional to interact with their patient. Like I said, not the only way, I don't think, but certainly it's a tool that hopefully will become increasingly more available. Obviously, it brings up the need for more broadband access, especially in our part of the state here in rural Indiana. It kind of makes that problem a little more glaringly obvious. And so those are things, as telehealth becomes more of a prominent tool, I think it's going to highlight that need for more broadband access as well. It's something we're certainly aware of and working on. So.
Well, you mentioned the broadband. Is there any bills right now that are working with that to make it more accessible for folks who live out in rural areas?
Yeah, there are. I can't speak intelligently on them right now. I don't have a real strong working knowledge. I don't have any bills myself on broadband, but we've got some folks in our utilities committee who are working on them. And typically they focus around grants for private companies to do the build out, right? I mean, that's the problem for a lot of these private companies, the ability to build out the infrastructure, because it can be very cost prohibitive, which is why it hasn't been done already when you're starting to get out into the more rural areas where, frankly, there's not as many people to buy in, and a company can't recoup its costs. So many of the bills, just kind of generally speaking, look at ways that we can kind of incentivize, a private company to go in and do that build out. So yeah, to answer your question, there are some bills in the works, and that will continue to address that issue.
And you are working to help agribusiness people with their property and getting some work done. You had a bill, I think you kind of mentioned a couple of years ago, it didn't really get too much traction. And I think you've resubmitted it. Where is that?
Yeah, so right now it has not been, it's been assigned to Natural Resources Committee, but it hasn't been. So the way it works, Bill, you probably know, just because it's assigned to a committee, that's kind of the first step, but the bill can quickly die if the chairman or chairwoman doesn't commit to hearing the bill. And quite honestly, most bills, like I said, 1,500 bills, there's no way that we're going to hear 1,400 or 1,500 bills in a session. So the majority of bills, to be fair, do, quote unquote, die in any given session. It's not as enjoyable when it's your bill, right? And it's an issue that you're passionate about and is important to your constituency. So as of right now, I haven't been able to get a commitment to get it heard from our chairman and Natural Resources, but we'll continue to talk to him and see what we can do. I have had further conversations with Natural Resources. Regardless whether the bill gets heard or not, there are things that we can do to hopefully expedite the process for farmers and again, I think that my goal has been just to decrease the amount of hoops that farmers need to jump through to do what they need to do, so.
Anything else that you would just like to add? This is your opportunity to talk about what may be happening next week.
Well, I had a bill, House Bill 1004, which was a House Republican priority bill, which is the small business grant program That passed out of Ways and Means this week, and then it will continue on in the process. We'll be on second reading probably Monday or Tuesday, I would say, and hopefully, we'll just kind of continue to move that bill right along and get it over to the Senate. But a lot of people are excited about that bill, just again, as a tool to allow small businesses that have been negatively impacted to kind of get back on their feet here. So that's probably that, and continued work on the telehealth bill are probably my two biggest things I see coming right now for sure. And then we'll see what else happens on a couple of the other bills I've been working on. So.
All right. Well, State Representative Shane Lindauer, we really appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to speak with us. Good luck with the rest of the session. It's a long one, being a budget year. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for watching 18 WJTS. We are local people watching local people.